Hey YouTube, I got a little recipe I'm working on here. I'm going to take you along with me. So it's swarm season, and one of my biggest frustrations is the need to rebait swarm traps about every 5 to 7 days if you use Swarm Commander or one of the other sprays. I make my own homemade spray, but you still got to go out there every few days and rebait it. I know there's a few tricks like Q-tips or cotton balls or even cotton pads in a Ziploc bag with a crack open so it evaporates a little bit slower, but I was looking for a way of having some sort of impregnated plastic or rubber that could act as that medallion that Swarm Commander even sells, a little piece of plastic that's a long-lasting swarm lure that might last the whole season. So I'm kind of a backyard chemist, and I don't know if any of you are familiar with this recipe, but there is such a thing as glycerin gelatin rubber. And many other kind of hobbyists use it for molds, like similar to latex or silicone, but it makes a very pliable rubber that is actually food grade, and it actually can be remelted and remolded over and over and over. And since I have glycerin in my shed already because of my extended oxalic acid release that I use for varroa mites, I was like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and give this a go. So there's a simple recipe, and I am going to make little medallions inside of my wife's little silicone candy molds here. I don't think she watches my YouTube channel, so I don't think there's any risk of her having any idea that I'm doing this with her kitchen supplies. But here we go. So I've got some water boiling over here because warm water does help the dissolving of the gelatin. But the basic recipe is this: 1, 2, 3. 1 part gelatin, 2 parts glycerin, 3 parts water. Now you can play with those a little bit based on the volume you need or the actual hardness of the rubber, and I've seen a lot of different variations, a little bit more on the glycerin and water being the same, but I'm gonna go ahead and do the 1, 2, 3. That way I can scale this up to different sizes. But the basic ingredient is this unflavored gelatin. It comes in packets, you can buy it in bulk, but the important thing I want you to know is that 1 packet of gelatin is about, in volume, 10 milliliters, okay? So 10 milliliters of gelatin to 20 milliliters of glycerin to 30 milliliters of water. And I've got some water over here heating up right now in my little double boiler, just so the water's already warm. And you need to mix the glycerin and the water first. So I'm gonna go ahead and get going and show you guys how this works. Okay, so 20 milliliters of glycerin going into a container that can be heated. Now, you can use a double boiler like I'm doing, or the microwave. If you use the microwave, it actually does it a lot faster, but you gotta kind of watch it because it bubbles over a little bit like cotton candy does. So that was the 20 milliliters of glycerin. And here's the 30 milliliters of warm water. Now you need to mix that up so the glycerin and the water are in solution. And when the glycerin and the water are in solution, it gets very, very clear very, very quickly. And the warmer the water, the easier it goes. And then you need to mix in your 1 part gelatin. And I'm just gonna kind of slowly mix this in here. And this is the part where it's gonna start to coagulate and it doesn't really wanna mix. But that's why we've gotta keep it stirring it and put it over heat. Now this, once you kind of get your gelatin and your glycerin and your water in here, this is where you kind of get the clumps out, and or you could go to the microwave very carefully if you're using your wife's microwave, or go into a double boiler like I'm doing right here. So I'm going to heat this up. You need to heat it up until this formulation turns clear. And I'm going to look at my watch and I'm going to tell you guys how many minutes that takes. Be right back. Okay. That has been about 3.5 minutes in the double boiler, and I don't know if you can see this or not, but it's got a little bit of stirring kind of bubbles, but all of the gelatin has been dissolved, and there's no more lumps, and it's nice and clear. So while it's still warm, this is where you put the magic. My swarm trap lure is lemongrass and neroli oil. This is kind of a combination of some things I've learned, heard, read, and adopted over the years. So my recipe on this one is going to be 7 drops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of lemongrass oil and 7 drops of neroli oil. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 1 to grow on. And stir this in the solution. The rubber will keep it in solution, unlike you don't need to add any lecithin or anything like that to emulsify the oil in this, because this is going to congeal into rubber. And wait, and oh, that smells so good. I know the bees are already gonna love it. So while it's still warm, go ahead and pour it into your molds. Katie, if you're watching, I'm sorry. And the coolest thing about this is it's completely reusable. So you could put this back in the microwave and probably even reuse it next year. Now I will say, I have not done this yet. So this is just me experimenting with a material to impregnate the oils that we all know work, right? We can continue to use cotton swabs or pads and Ziploc bags, but if I can get this rubber to where I just throw one of these in the bottom of a swarm trap and don't have to rebait it, that is what I'm after. Okay, so a 1-packet recipe using 10 milliliters of gelatin, 20 milliliters of glycerin, and 30 milliliters of water made 9 little medallions with the lemongrass and neroli oil added in for smell. So I'm gonna go put these in the refrigerator. We'll let them firm up and I'll be right back and show you what it looks like. All right, YouTube, here's the end of the first test. So I just pulled these out of the freezer. They were in there for probably 20 minutes and I think I like the pliability of it. Let's see. So I pulled a couple of them out already just to kind of see what it looked like, but let me show you what they look like when they pull out. It's just this little rubber. Now, due to the recipe having those ratios of gelatin to glycerin to water, I'm guessing the melting point of this is probably lower with more water than if it had less water. So I'm gonna set some of these around the yard, but when I smell them, whew, it's just like I've got lemongrass oil in my fingers. And it's almost like a gummy bear is what it feels like. And I'm pulling it apart and okay, it just started ripping, but it's got the consistency of a gummy bear, which is exactly kind of what I was going for. Now, will it stay solid in the temperatures inside of a swarm box? I think the answer is yes. If not, I'm gonna change the recipe. But more importantly, will it continue to put off this scent for weeks? I think the answer is yes. I'm gonna keep you posted. In any case, if you like this video, let me know what you think, even if it's just an idea, so we all get thinking together on different ideas and materials and how to make beekeeping a fun hobby. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Have a great day. All right, we got an update. So I'm checking the melting point on this black table that is very hot to the touch. It turned into a liquid pool. So that definitely validates that the melting point is probably around 120, 130 degrees. But on this piece of plywood right next to it in the exact same sunlight, it's a little bit sticky, but it's still in one piece. See that? So it's gonna kind of get soft, which I think is gonna let the oils come out, but it's good to the touch. Now, I put another one over here inside of a hive, and it's not even as sticky. So the hive inside the shaded temperature feels just about right. And last but not least, one other spot that was in direct sunlight, right here on this surface, turned into a pool of jelly. But this was an earlier batch I made that was 1-to-1 water and glycerin, and it's still in shape. So there's kind of the proof that more glycerin to water ratios, so closer to 1-to-1, has a higher melting temperature where it gets soft and sticky. So anyway, lots to learn. I think I'm liking it. Just might need to play with the formula for the melting point based on your conditions. Hope you enjoy it.